Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the FX Daily Roundup. And we are seeing the euro come a little bit under pressure here. Going and spinning to another screen. And you can see here that we're just dripping here. We're actually coming into some key support here at the 1033. That's been like a pivot all week long. It's actually today's bias chart support. Here we got a headline about the whole trade war situation, and Trump is willing to, I think the gist of it was he's willing to escalate if necessary. So that, as you can see here also with the S&P has actually dropped it down. We do have some support coming in right there at 3011. Relatively quiet session here. You can see gold was just, for the most part, not doing anything. Finally broke a little bit lower. We actually got the precious metal just to move a little bit higher on that news. So kind of like a contra type thing, because it's had various reactions when we see those trade war headlines. But other than that, everything's been relatively quiet. Even crude oil, you can see here, we're moving, but same thing, very, very quiet session. So let's go and move into the other screen. Does referencing here, and the only thing I'm seeing here, and well, let me pop back into something else quickly. There we go. I wanted to show this on the dollar yen. We, the BOJ, they certainly weren't aggressive as we potentially thought they could be, or at least that it would give that. And I had yesterday's bias chart resistance at 855 with extra resistance here at 881. I was working a limit at 854, but I came up 5 pips short, and but we did go and see the pair come off. And now whether this comes to fruition or not, but we have like what appears to be a little bit of a head and shoulders potentially that could go and inform. Certainly not a great looking one, but this kind of plays into, here's the 827, the 78%. So I'm looking to sell, offers up, or looking to offer at 820, but we can maybe make a run up here and then maybe eventually go and rotate back. We did see a decent little reaction. Market's still well bid because obviously with, equity still staying relatively strong, but maybe once we get past triple witching and all that, then maybe we'll see the equities weaken a bit. And that may play in with the dollar yen kind of potentially moving up a little bit higher, and then we'll roll lower. But like I said, for right now, there's not a whole lot happening. We have seen the dollar CAD come up here. Yesterday's bias chart resistance was 3307, and you can see that right there. So we pretty much hit that, and then we've rotated a little bit lower today. We kind of bounced around, and we've worked here, and you can see here, pairing back to 3251. We had our bias chart levels in here, depending on how that day was going to go and react, kept that pretty much the same here with dollar CAD. But everything is relatively quiet now. The dollar peso did come down to finally challenge or test the 61%. And we'll take a look at that here. So we actually came down here, and in the bias chart, we've kept this still bullish because as long as we held above this key huge breakout area of 1923.6, I said I'm going to keep the bias as bullish. Now this morning we actually had the bias chart support at 1935. We did go in and come, you can see here, we did go in and come down here and finally make it down to test this 1932. Basically right there, 32.3, 1932 is a 61%. We've rebounded a bit, nothing of real big notice, but we had a little bit of a rebound off this. Now this is on a 5-minute chart, so it probably looks a little bit more exaggerated. Now you see here, today's bias chart resistance is 1945.3, but we're in a very quiet session. But we did go in and defend that 1932 area. They actually had some pretty good volume just below that. If you see here, this 1929 area here, so he dipped back there. I thought it was a pretty decent low risk reward. I already jumped out. There's not really a whole lot happening, and in quiet markets, I don't like to stick around. Every time I stick around, lots of times the market will go against me, and next thing you know, I'm rationalizing why I should stay in a position, and before you know it, turns into a real mess. maybe not a mess, but a real stinker. So, like I said, I've barely just done just a very little bit with the gold and the peso, and then that's it. And the euro, I'm glad I didn't step in. I almost stepped in a little bit earlier, thinking about buying on a dip. Now, that being said, if you look at the peso, we've actually just come up against this trend line, and our bias chart resistance was 1075. You can see that level here, and I'll go and open this up for you. You see the 1075 here? So we actually had this as our bias chart resistance today, and if they blew past it, because when we were doing the European crossover webinar, we were just right there, okay? I think we were like at 1072 or something like that. And I said, well, if we get past that, we know that 1113 is pretty important. I mean, we could get, that would be important to get up, but we may, take a pause here and pare back a bit. But you can see that trend line is holding that along with this 1075 level. And we've just kind of rotated lower. We keep talking about this euro. I mean, I don't know how many times, people think it's going to move higher and it just rolls over. It's going to move higher, rolls over. We talked about this even yesterday. You know what I mean? So, I don't know what this is going to generate this. The only thing I will say, where we had this day here where the market did turn around here, I actually bought it on the way down and was a little bit underwater and added on to that. But we saw the market rebound the very next morning on the German data, which was very poor. But the market, actually, at the time, we had rallied up to about 1022 or so at that point. And then when the German data came out, we were already starting to weaken a little bit. I think we were trading like at 914. And I would have thought that the pair would have gone sub 110. And it actually held. It only dipped down to like 1010. And so I guess that was, rather positive development, seeing even more poor German data and the market holding up very well, not even attacking towards its lows, which weren't even that far away. But we got above that key 10 to 1033, which is, I mentioned, that's today's bias chart support, 1033, which has really worked like a pivot all week long. Okay, 1033 was the support on the way down, and when we did the bias chart analysis at the start of the week, I put on here, the euro staged a strong rally on ECB day, but lacked follow-through on Friday's close. The pair needs a daily close above 1113. You can see that. Now, this was done, preceding to this week, start of the week, to generate further upside. Critical support comes in at 1033. A close below 1036 opens immediate challenge to 967. Well, we ended up getting down to, I think it was at 989, but we got above, once we secured a move above 1033, we really took off yesterday. But look at this. Up, down, up, down. I mean, today we're trying to make a move up, but we weren't able to break past this trend line, and that 1075 comes in. And I guess, like I said, the only thing I'm kind of glad about is I didn't bite on that. I almost thought about, well, if it's holding here, it won't take much to punch beyond it. But this euro has failed so many times, countless times. I thought, you know what, I'm not going to mess around with it. If it takes off, then I'll try and buy it when it, let's say it makes up to 1113 and pulls back. Maybe I'll try and jump in at that point. But, it looked like, you would have thought that they would have been able to at least goose the stops. And this trend line really worked like, like a the Rock of Gibraltar on this thing, and we just slowly started moving lower, and then all of a sudden we got the headlines. Trump saying, if he didn't say, well, his representative said, hey, if necessary, Trump will escalate. And then that kind of put the euro a little bit further on the offer. We're actually holding here around 1042. That 1033. I mean, I don't mind being a buyer there at around 1034. And thinking, okay, we're coming into the end of the week, maybe we'll see a little bit of short covering, and that would help. So I don't mind being a buyer at 1034. It hasn't dipped down to that part yet. We'll pop it up here on the 5-minute here. So we've come down as low as, what, 1038. We're starting to work a little bit higher, so maybe we won't even see that. We shall see. We actually just crossed over on the 30-minute on the exponential moving average as a sell signal. Other than that, like I said, everything's been relatively quiet. As I mentioned, even gold, we saw a little bit of a move higher, but we kind of rotated lower. I'll go in and show you back to that original screen. I was looking at a 5-minute chart here, and actually I thought, boy, we talked about this on the European crossover webinar, and we're looking at the spot. Now, like I said, I trade the futures, but I mean, we use a trading view chart, so it has on the spot. So that's why basic charts on, hey, look, it's all the same, whether it's trading at a you know, in the sense, you know, maybe trading at a premium. But once again, like I said, I go and use these charts, and, you know, it's going to tell me where I need to get into as far as the futures. But you can see here, I thought, okay, now we're really going to slide, because we talked about on the European crossover webinar, and I'll show you what I'm referring to. This morning we had our, you can see here we had the pink line coming up in here. That's our, at the time was our little bias chart resistance. I don't have that on the bias chart, but we were talking about it this morning. And I mentioned about gold, and I mentioned about the SPOOs. I said, hey, look, you know, there's gold. And I think at the time we were trading around 96 or, okay, actually, well, no, right here, right there. There we were. We're trading right there. So we're trading at 14.95, and I go, hey, look, I go, you know, it's about $4 higher. Oh, you know what? I'll tell you what, maybe it's really closer to about $5 higher. It's going to be right there around 1503. Well, we did make that run up here. So I'm thinking, okay, now the market is probably going to want to rotate a little bit lower. I mean, now it has, but I'm just saying at the time, it was doing a whole bunch of nothing. And I'll go into the 5-minute chart. And you can see here, we just weren't doing anything here. We're just kind of, you know, it's kind of, we take a little bit of a dip, then it'd stick around, take a little bit of a dip. So I got out, you know, with a couple of bucks, but you can see here as the market started coming in tighter and tighter, we finally broke a little bit lower. And if you go in and measure this right here, you see here, right there, take that from here, put us in right here at this 1496-ish area here. And we did get a little bit of a mini hammer. So I thought, okay, now the market can work a little bit higher. Well, it worked a little bit higher, but we came back and tested. We're pushing a little bit, but it's quiet. I mean, it's just real quiet. I mean, to me, I like to trade when there's a little bit more movement, because you have a lot more, put it this way, a lot more leeway to be wrong, in the sense that if you don't come in at the right price, if the market's kind of swinging around, and I don't mean like on ECB or Fed day, but I'm just saying some decent movement, then even if you don't come at the best price, you still have the potential to go on and get out if you're scalping / day trading, because the market's kind of flipping back and forth. If not, like I said, on these quiet markets, and I'll give you an example, like with the euro, you know, next thing you know, it's like the boiling, you know, the frog in the boiling water. It's like, okay, well, I like this area. It's going a little bit lower. Okay, it's a little bit lower. Well, I'm sure they're going to hold a little bit lower. Okay, now now it looks like we got a low. Finally got it. Now we're going to finally start moving higher. A little bit lower, a little bit. Well, they're probably just going to gun the stops, and then they're going to pop right back a little bit lower, a little bit. And before you know it, like I said, a position that may have had a few pips of profit, but certainly wasn't a target, turns into lower, turns into, you know, a loss, turns into a bigger loss. Maybe not that much, but that's why I just don't like to trade into, you know, quiet markets. I like to see a little bit further action as we move around here. Even crude oil, although we're moving a little bit, you can see it's relatively quiet trading here. Moving into the SPOOs, we have backed down a little bit here. I did mention we had the support here at 3011. Looks like we stopped here. What? Well, we did. Okay, we did make it down there. Okay, like 11.25. Anyway, so we've kind of bounced up a little bit, but the headline, I'm sure, took a little bit of the bid out of this thing. But other than that, everything's very, very quiet. We'll go in and jump into the cross rates real quick. You can see the Euro Kiwi did punch up against this bias chart resistance here that we had. Right there, 75.43. We're kind of rotating a little bit lower off of that. You know, the pound is still holding up. You know, we do have a big decision. I think it's in an hour and a half or so, something like that. I think Blake mentioned on the chat room. But we're still kind of hanging around here, also hanging them very well here on the sterling odd. We know the weakness that we saw. We had that poor Australian data, employment data. And so I think we can potentially still push up here. That's why I pushed this bias chart resistance today at 84.41 here. If we do get the cable to push it a little bit higher. Aussie yen is trading relatively quiet. It actually went right down and actually hit our bias chart support that we had from yesterday, and we just kept it to today. But we came down here and tagged this. But we're trading pretty quiet, and I do know that tomorrow's the big witching day for SPOOs. Maybe we're just kind of holding things and keeping things relatively quiet. We have seen the euro-yen pair back a little bit, actually, to this trend line here. The only thing I'm kind of looking at right now is dollar-yen. And I am working an offer, and I'll keep it there at 820. Kind of frustrating yesterday. I thought that we might have seen the dollar yen bounce on FOMC day and had that offer sitting there at 854. And we came up short of that. But then in Asia, we started working higher, and then we came up short of about 5 pips of that, and then we came off on that. So, but that's what the only thing I'm seeing here. The only thing, like I said, with euro, maybe we'll be able to hold a little bit. Maybe we'll see a little bit of short covering here with the euro tomorrow. And I think, and I'm not expecting a whole lot out of it, but maybe we'll see a little bit there. On Friday, we shall see. Cable's still holding up relatively well here. Look at that. But as I mentioned, we do have a big decision that's going to be coming up. So not even that much of a reaction at all, really, from the Bank of England this morning. So here we are. And if we do go in and jump up, I've actually lowered the bias chart resistance on the cable. We actually have it at 25.43. Certainly it's bullish. Okay. And that's where we stand. But thanks for joining us here on the FX Daily Roundup on a very quiet day. And be careful trading on quiet days.